There is a quiet exhaustion that comes not from work itself, but from being needed too much. It settles deep in the chest, unnoticed at first, like a thin layer of dust on the heart. You wake up each morning already carrying invisible obligations. You answer messages quickly. You anticipate desires before they are spoken. You become useful, reliable, indispensable. And slowly, without a dramatic moment or clear decision, your own inner voice becomes faint. Many people believe usefulness is a virtue that guarantees safety. If I am helpful, I will be loved. If I am productive, I will be protected. If I am successful, I will finally be allowed to rest. Yet the old Taoist sages looked at this belief with gentle suspicion. They watched rivers carve valleys without effort. They observed trees that survived storms precisely because they were flexible, not strong. And they asked a dangerous question. What if the need to be useful is the very thing that makes life heavy? To be useful is to be shaped by the expectations of others. You become a tool, even if a beautiful one. Tools do not choose where they go. They are placed, they are picked up, they are praised when they function and discarded when they dull. When usefulness becomes identity, your worth is measured by external demand. The moment you stop providing, the silence feels like disappearance. Taoist wisdom does not reject action. It questions attachment to outcomes. It notices how ambition tightens the body and narrows perception. Success, in this view, is not evil, it is seductive. It whispers that more recognition will finally bring peace. Yet each achievement quietly raises the bar, and the mind learns to rest only in the future. Peace is postponed, presence is sacrificed. There is a well-known Taoist story about a gnarled, twisted tree that no carpenter wants. Its wood is uneven, its shape impractical. Because it is useless, it is never cut down. It grows old. Birds rest in its branches. Shade gathers beneath it. Its uselessness becomes its protection. While straight trees are turned into tables and doors, the crooked tree lives freely, untouched by ambition. This story is not asking you to abandon responsibility or withdraw from life. It invites a subtle shift. Who are you when no one needs anything from you? What remains when productivity pauses? Can you sit without justifying your existence? Can you breathe without earning the right to breathe? When success becomes the center of life, attention moves outward. You monitor reactions, you manage impressions, you measure yourself against moving standards. The nervous system never fully rests. Taoism noticed this long before modern language described burnout. It saw how striving fractures the natural rhythm of being. The Tao is not impressed by efficiency. It flows where resistance is minimal. It nourishes without announcing itself. When you stop forcing usefulness, something unexpected happens. Life begins to meet you halfway. Opportunities arise not from tension, but from alignment. Actions feel lighter. Rest no longer feels like guilt. To stop being useful does not mean becoming passive. It means releasing the compulsion to prove your value. It means allowing moments of apparent emptiness. In that emptiness, sensitivity returns. You notice subtler joys. You hear your own breath again. The world no longer feels like a task to complete. Success, when chased, becomes a trap because it replaces being with becoming. There is always another version of yourself to reach. Taoism gently steps aside from this race. It points to what is already whole. It reminds you that water does not hurry, yet nothing escapes its path. As you begin to loosen your grip on usefulness, discomfort may arise. The ego resists invisibility. Silence feels unsafe at first. But if you stay, if you do not rush to fill the space, a deeper ease slowly unfolds. Life becomes less about being needed and more about being real. This is the beginning of lightness, not achieved, but allowed. When usefulness loosens its grip, the mind often reacts with fear. It whispers that without constant contribution, you will fade into irrelevance. This fear is ancient. It comes from a time when survival depended on belonging, when being needed meant being fed and protected. But the modern world has amplified this instinct into an identity. Now usefulness is not just survival, it is self-worth. Daoist thinkers noticed how quickly the mind confuses motion with meaning. Activity feels like life, stillness feels like danger. Yet nature tells a different story. Winter does not apologize for its barrenness. A field at rest is not failing, it is gathering strength in silence. The Tao flows through pauses as much as through movement. There is another old Daoist parable. A farmer loses his horse, and neighbors say it is bad luck. He answers calmly that they cannot know. The horse returns with others, and they call it good luck. Again, he says they cannot know. His son breaks a leg riding one of the horses, and later that injury saves him from being taken to war. The story is simple but unsettling. It reveals how quickly the mind labels events as success or failure. Daoism invites us to rest before judgment, to remain open to unfolding rather than clinging to outcomes. Success, when idolized, narrows perception. You begin to see life as a sequence of wins and losses. Everything becomes instrumental. Relationships become networks. Time becomes currency. Even rest becomes a tool for better performance. In this way, success quietly consumes the very life it promises to improve. The Daoist path suggests another orientation. Instead of asking how to achieve more, it asks how to interfere less. Instead of sharpening the self into something impressive, it softens the self into something responsive. This is not weakness, it is adaptability. Water yields, yet it shapes mountains. When you stop trying to be useful, space opens for authenticity. You begin to notice where your yes was habitual rather than sincere. You recognize how often you acted from fear of disapproval rather than inner clarity. This awareness can feel uncomfortable, even painful, but it is also liberating. It returns choice. Usefulness demands constant alignment with external needs. Authenticity requires listening inward. The two often conflict. Daoism gently sides with the latter, not because the world does not matter, but because harmony arises when inner and outer move together, not when one is sacrificed to the other. There is a quiet joy in doing things without strategic intent, walking without counting steps, speaking without calculating impact, sitting without documenting presence. These moments restore intimacy with experience. They remind you that life is not a project to manage, but a process to inhabit. As attachment to success weakens, a new relationship with effort emerges. Actions are taken because they feel appropriate, not because they promise reward. Work becomes an expression rather than a performance. Paradoxically, this often leads to better results, but that is no longer the point. Daoism warns that the desire to be seen easily replaces the desire to be true. When usefulness defines identity, invisibility feels like death. Yet invisibility is also freedom. It allows movement without scrutiny. It allows growth without comparison. To live lightly is not to withdraw from the world, but to stop carrying it on your shoulders. The Tao carries everything already. When you trust this, effort becomes cooperation rather than struggle. You do less, but what you do is cleaner, quieter, more alive.
This is how the trap of success begins to loosen, not through rejection, but through reorientation. Life stops being a ladder and becomes a landscape.
As the need to be useful dissolves, a deeper question appears. Who am I when I am not performing? This question cannot be answered intellectually. It must be lived. Daoism does not rush this discovery. It allows identity to thin gradually, like mist under morning light. Many people fear emptiness because they confuse it with lack. Daoist philosophy sees emptiness as capacity. A cup is useful because it is empty. A room is livable because of the space inside it. When the self is crowded with roles and expectations, there is little room for genuine response. Emptiness restores sensitivity. The obsession with success often comes from mistrust of life. It assumes that without constant control, everything will collapse. Daoism offers a radical alternative. It suggests that life is already intelligent, that when you stop forcing direction, a subtler guidance emerges. This guidance is not loud. It is felt as ease, as right timing, as quiet knowing. There is a profound humility in this view. The individual self steps back. The need to dominate circumstances softens. Instead of imposing will, you begin to listen. Instead of conquering, you begin to participate. This shift changes everything. Usefulness creates hierarchy. Some roles matter more. Some people are more valuable. Daoism dissolves this structure. It sees equal importance in all expressions of the Tao. A leader and a laborer, a teacher and a student, each move within the same current. When success loses its pedestal, comparison fades, envy loosens, competition relaxes. The body responds quickly to this shift. Breathing deepens, muscles soften, sleep becomes more restorative. Much of modern anxiety is the result of constant self-monitoring. Am I enough? Am I ahead? Am I falling behind? When usefulness is no longer the metric, the mind rests. This does not mean abandoning excellence. It means redefining it. Excellence becomes sincerity, presence, care without self-erasure, work done fully, then released. Daoism values completion without attachment. You act, then let go. The paradox is that when you stop trying to be important, you often become more impactful. Your words carry less agenda. Your presence feels safer. People sense that you are not extracting validation. This creates trust. Influence grows organically without manipulation. Daoism also warns against spiritual ambition. Even the desire to be enlightened can become another form of success chasing, another identity to defend. True freedom is quieter. It does not announce itself. It feels ordinary, like returning home. As life becomes lighter, moments of stillness expand. You may find yourself enjoying simple things again. Light through a window, the rhythm of footsteps, the taste of tea. These are not distractions from success. They are expressions of life unfiltered. In this space, gratitude arises naturally, not because things are perfect, but because resistance has softened. You are no longer arguing with reality. You are moving with it. The Tao does not reward striving. It supports harmony. When you stop being useful as a strategy, usefulness becomes a byproduct rather than a burden. You help because it flows, not because it proves anything. This is the quiet liberation Daoism points toward, not dramatic, not heroic, just deeply humane. At some point, the question of usefulness loses its urgency. You no longer need to reject it or defend it. It simply becomes optional. You act when action feels right. You rest when rest feels honest. Life regains its natural rhythm, like breathing without instruction. Daoism describes this as returning to the root, before ambition, before comparison, before the idea that worth must be demonstrated. In this return,
there is profound relief. The self no longer feels like a project under constant revision. Success, once seen as a destination, reveals itself as a passing condition. It comes and goes like weather. When it arrives, you do not cling. When it leaves, you do not panic. Identity remains untouched. This stability is the real wealth Daoism points to. There is courage in choosing simplicity in a culture addicted to excess. Courage in being unremarkable when the world demands spectacle. Courage in trusting that your existence does not need constant justification. When you stop being useful to expectations that drain you, you become available to life itself. Creativity returns. Curiosity reawakens. Relationships deepen because they are no longer transactional. You listen without preparing a response. You give without keeping score. The Tao flows most freely through those who do not try to control it. These people often appear ordinary, yet their presence carries a quiet authority. They do not chase success, and because of this, success does not enslave them. As this reflection comes to a close, allow the ideas to settle rather than conclude. There is nothing here to achieve, only something to notice. Perhaps a softening, perhaps a question that lingers gently. If this space of calm resonated with you, you are warmly invited to subscribe, to place a like if the words felt meaningful, and to share your reflections in the comments. Your presence here matters in its own quiet way. And to everyone who wishes to support the channel with a donation, the links are in the description and in the pinned comment. Thank you for spending this time together. May your path be light, unforced, and deeply your own.